Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the 4554 podcast. I'm your host, Nick Eden, and we are back with another show. I got to tell you, I cannot believe, I really didn't expect any response last week when I put up the first show since April of 2018. There were a couple of other episodes that were put through another host server that shall remain nameless. We'll just consider those the lost episodes that we may put together another time. But I'm really shocked at the feedback. A lot of good feedback on YouTube, a lot of good feedback just in general. And so I'm happy that people actually want to, see and hear the content. If you're listening to this on the podcast or if you're watching it on YouTube, I really appreciate it. And I got some really good feedback, which actually leads me into my show today. And so you guys know that my biggest thing is helping out new sellers. And so I got a couple of messages on Facebook asking me if I could give them some of my best strategies for marketing during Q4. And I got to tell you, immediately I thought, man, you guys are really on the right track, because some people think when they're brand new, oh, I can just put it up and they'll find me. But they actually want to market during Q4, which is something that you have to do. I mean, it's just basic business. Yes, you have places like Merch by Amazon and Etsy that have tons of their own organic traffic. However, with that, there's still a lot of competition, and you have to find a way to stick out. And so I decided that today's show is going to be my top 2 marketing strategies for Q4. Now, the good thing about it is, and as you will see, and I'll talk a little bit about this more towards the end of the podcast today, this is not just something for Merch by Amazon. Merch by Amazon is a wonderful platform that I've done very well on. And quite frankly, I don't know that I would have been at the place that I am now were it not for being on Merch by Amazon, even though I started doing print on demand before I was accepted into Merch. But these strategies can be done anywhere. And so we'll just get right into it. Again, you guys know I don't like a lot of fluff. So let's start with our very first one. Our very first marketing strategy is Pinterest. Okay, so, and Pinterest is the beast that everyone seems to be completely confused about. And I get it. Even though it's simple in terms of its setup, it's still a situation where it's still a little difficult to navigate what you can actually do to be effective. And so the beautiful thing about these strategies, and there are a lot of people out there that have been selling longer and they have a much higher sales volume. Look, this isn't the show for you. This is for our new sellers. This is for the people who are brand new to this. They're trying to get started. But I will say, it is possible to use these strategies if you're not already implementing them. And if you are a veteran seller and you're not implementing them, you may want to rethink a strategy. So Pinterest is a strategy that I've been using throughout the year, but really, really targeted towards Q4. And it's an evergreen strategy. It's worked every year that I've had a Q4, even back to my private label days, retail arbitrage days. It's worked. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So with Pinterest, the biggest thing is you want those repins. You want people, and the platform has changed a bit over the years, but the strategy is still simple and the same. You want people to go to those boards where your products are, whether they're shirts, mugs, anything like that. You want them on those posts. Well, how do you do that? Well, let's see. Let's say, for example, and I'll use an actual example that I used. This is when I was really in my, I guess you can call it my research and development stage, just trying to find different niches that would work. And one very then popular niche, and still popular to this day, I just wouldn't touch it right now, was pumpkin spice. We know that is a huge market among suburban moms, particularly those who do go on Pinterest. And so I did a series of t-shirts and mugs that were specifically targeting those that were into pumpkin spice. By the way, I've never liked pumpkin spice, not at all. But the people that love it, they absolutely love it. So what I did was I created several boards and I just centered them all around fall. So different fall scenes, different activities you could do with your kids. I went in, I created this board, and I just started repinning all of these different things. Particularly recipes for things that could be done with pumpkin spice, whether it's a pumpkin spice latte, pumpkin spice this, everything pumpkin spice. And so this fall board, which I still get repins on this board till this day, and I will tell you the fundamental mistake that I made with them. I created the board, I put all those different pins in, and then I added my shirts and my mugs. And I'll do a companion video on YouTube that shows you how to pin, because I have noticed that a lot of people still don't necessarily know how to pin things. Totally fine. I get it. And so once I pin those in, you give it a while. It's a long-term strategy. It really is. It just picks up in Q4 because that is a fall season. So as people were repinning, they're visiting the boards, they're visiting and they're looking, and then they're starting to see, oh, okay, well, in addition to this recipe for pumpkin spice sugar cookies, there's also a t-shirt that talks about pumpkin spice latte. Oh, this is a great t-shirt. And so they repin that. And the next thing you know, as I look, it goes from seeing 5 pins a day about pumpkin spice recipes to 10 pins a day about the shirt, and 5 about the pumpkin. And the more and more they shared and repinned everything, the more and more visibility the shirts got, and they began to sell. This is where I made my fundamental mistake with Pinterest, and I would hope that nobody else makes this mistake. Well, and to be honest, this was at a time when merch, you were coming down every 90 days. Well, I think it may have been 60 days at the time. In any event, you were coming down relatively fast. It is one of those situations where when you're pinning boards, you have to look at the long game, which means if you decide I'm going to pin something in November for Thanksgiving, that pin may not pick up as fast as something that you did in July or August, which was a sound strategy for me to do then. But what I was doing was I was taking those shirts that went up on merch, pinning them on Pinterest, and I did it in July. By the time October came, the shirts were gone. And so I had maybe 2 or 3 boards where they were just, oh, this is repinning this, repinning that. And I had some very popular boards for pumpkin spice, but no products to pin on them. And I didn't realize it until it was like, oh, crap. And so actually in that regard, I went back, and instead of using my merch listings, I used my Teespring listings. Now, this may not be the case, and it probably won't be the case now, because if you go ahead and get started now, which I know that we are 6 days away from Q4, we really are. There are strategies to promote your listings, paid listings, or boards on Pinterest that I can go into in another time. So that can speed up the process a bit. However, in a situation where if you are using a platform like Merch by Amazon, you absolutely can go ahead and say, we can put that up now because everything is staying up for a year. So that is a strategy for Pinterest. I have used it every year that I have been in e-commerce since Pinterest was available. And I'm by no means a Pinterest expert, but what I do know is when I do it, it works. And even till this day, I still get pings for these pins for several boards that I've put up over the years. So that's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2, targeted Facebook groups. And I know everybody is scared of the big bad wolf called Facebook, because you're like, it doesn't really work for my listings. It costs a lot to advertise. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about completely organic, completely free, but very, very targeted, and you have to put in the work. So we all have several interests outside of just generally being on our Facebook pages. Those who can survive without Facebook, I absolutely adore and admire you, because even though I don't really like to go on my regular timeline anymore, there are a lot of cultivated groups that I go into, some that I manage, some that I just like to go and visit just because I like the atmosphere of those particular things. Now, this strategy is something, again, that I've been using every year that I've done a Q4, and it's really done well for me this year outside of Q4. And don't get me wrong, both of these strategies can be used year round. You just see a little bit more of an uptick during this time where everyone's antennas are a little more elevated, and they're talking about, okay, what can I buy for Christmas gifts? What can I buy for myself? Birthday, all these different types of things. So, this strategy, which I just tried in a new group that I've been in for about a month, maybe 2 months now. Um, so, as opposed to just trying to go the general route of, hey, here's my T-shirt, you guys, please buy it if you like it. That almost never works. People do not like to be sold to, so don't do that. Do not just try to go in and sell them. This has to be something that's organic. And so let me give you an example of my most recent success. I sold 11 of this t-shirt in one day, and then subsequently about 10 a day after that, until it started to fizzle down a little bit. But that's fine, because it's time to just kind of re-up and post another shirt. So what I did was, there's this one group that is very, very targeted. It's got about 4,500 people in the group. Not a large number in the scope of groups, but it is very, very targeted towards a specific interest. And so what I did was, I did not put up a post with a t-shirt as a listing. I actually ordered the shirt, and I was wearing the shirt, and I took a picture of a DVD. Yes, people still like DVDs, depending on what niche you're in, right? You have collectors. This just so happened to be a collector type group. So I ordered the t-shirt. I took a picture holding up the DVD, not of my face. It was like from the neck down, but you could very clearly see the shirt as well as the DVD. And I talked about the DVD to this targeted group of people. What happened as a byproduct of that, everyone who commented on that post was like, man, where'd you get that shirt? Where'd you get that shirt? I've got to get that shirt. And that's where you got them. But the fundamental mistake that everybody makes is they say, oh, this is my shirt that I designed. Here's the link to it. Please go buy. People don't like to buy from you. I don't know any other way to say it. Because if they feel like you're trying to sell them, they feel like you're disingenuous. They don't feel like, oh man, I just see a really dope shirt that I want. And they're like, oh, okay, thanks. And now, if someone asks you, I wouldn't say lie. If someone asks you, well, did you design this shirt? Well, yeah, I designed the shirt. But they want to know that they're dealing with a consumer just like them. So, oh, where did you get this shirt? I got this shirt on Amazon. Here's the link. Oh man, thank you. So now they feel like they're a part of something that is exclusive. Now they feel like, oh man, I can get this. This will be great. I'm talking to another consumer. Again, don't lie to them, but you don't have to volunteer the information that you designed the shirt. Now, if they ask you, that's one thing, but for the most part, no. And it's just kind of gone on and on. Here's the thing though, in order for this strategy to work, and it can work faster than, a lot of other Facebook strategies and places like Reddit. I really wouldn't suggest Reddit. Reddit, it's a completely different atmosphere there. And anyway, but in order for this to work, you have to get into the group and you have to interact with people. You have to be a member of that group. You have to be a productive member that goes through and you actually, interact with the people, talk, comment, and like on other people's posts, engage in conversations. And this is the way that you cultivate it, because you are building a trust between yourself and other members of that community. And so it really does work well. Again, you have to interact. I don't know any other way to say it. And it has to make sense. And this is why I say targeted Facebook groups as opposed to just Facebook groups in general. The biggest mistake that most people make is they go into a niche that they have no interest in, that they don't know. And don't get me wrong, I've had successes with t-shirts and other products that have done well in terms of sales with something I'm not particularly interested in. But I know for me, when I go into a niche, when I go into a different type of realm of something I'm not interested in, I can just kind of dive in. I really, really get just immersed in it, which is not always the most convenient thing, especially when it comes to my wife. I spent a lot of time and she's like, what are you looking at gumball machines for? Don't worry about it. I got a plan here. But So you have to really immerse yourself. And so I'll give you a good example. And this is a real time example, a niche that I've been selling in for a while. Back in 2017, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And so back in 2017, the wrestler Randy Orton made some comments about independent wrestling, indie wrestling, and how they just do the same type of moves. Everything is this. And one thing that became really popular from what he was saying was dive. Now, where you have these hardcore independent wrestling fans, they really go hard for it. Like the hardcore fans, the ones that love indie wrestling, they go hard for it. Though the tweet that he did went viral. And so people were just like, oh, okay, we're going to take this and we're going to flip it around. I did several shirts that mentioned the word dive. Now, if somebody who's never been into wrestling, didn't know anything about these tweets, just comes and they see this shirt on Amazon, or they see this shirt on Teespring or somewhere like that, or Redbubble, they're like, dive, what the hell does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. Meanwhile, all the hardcore wrestling fans are just going through and buying the hell out of the shirt. And that's just kind of what it was. And so these different shirts that said dive and different variations like keep calm and dive, or just different things like that, it didn't seem like much to anyone else, which helped to keep the competition low. But for the hardcore fans and the ones that I was interacting with in the groups using a similar strategy to, oh, okay, here's the shirt, and not selling them on it, it made it go, and it was a very profitable time with the dive shirts. And I have no problem sharing that now because it's been 3 years and even the hardcore wrestling fans aren't talking about that anymore. But those are the types of things that you can do. So Pinterest and targeted Facebook groups. Wow. Say that 5 times fast. Those are 2 evergreen strategies that will definitely help you when it comes to your merch journey, and when I say merch, I mean print on demand overall going into this Q4. And these are strategies that you can use year round, but they really, really work well during Q4. And so that's it for that portion of it. I did want to talk a little bit about the podcast going forward. So going forward, one thing I have noticed, just kind of auditing my past episodes, going through and looking at my YouTube channel, I really did notice that mostly everything is centered around Merch by Amazon. And I get that. And that wasn't the case. That's not what I wanted to do when I started the 4554 podcast, because I was one of the sellers that came from other platforms that had success on those platforms. And so, but merch being the new kid in town, merch being the hot kid in town, and merch being, a part of the biggest platform in the world for e-commerce, I can see how it does get very, very wrapped up, centered around merch. And so going forward, one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that I covered a lot more content outside of Merch by Amazon. There are a lot of people who cannot afford to wait. I don't know what the wait time for Merch by Amazon is now. It surely can't be like it was when I started. I waited almost 6 months. I know people who've gotten in 3 days. I don't know the landscape of that right now and what exactly Amazon is looking for. I would encourage anyone who's going into the print on demand business that you do want to have Merch by Amazon in your arsenal, but you also have access to other platforms like Spreadshirt and Redbubble, Society6, Designed by Humans, Etsy. You have these other places where you can start. Some of them have great traffic, some of them not so great traffic. But if this is about creating a sustainable business, then you have to be able, one, to be on multiple platforms, because there are different ways to market. There are different ways to operate within those spaces. And you want to make sure that you've got your eggs in as many baskets as possible. Not to the point that you spread yourself thin, but to the point that you can see, okay, this is working for me over here. So let me put a little bit more focus into this. This isn't working anymore. Maybe I can revamp some things, or maybe I can just leave that platform alone and concentrate on what is working. And that's the beautiful thing about print on demand, is that you can do so many different things with it. And it's so much more than Merch by Amazon. So look for other content. I'm actually going to start a series next week, where each week I go through and I cover a different print-on-demand platform, the ups, the downs. Some of these series will have interviews with people from those platforms or people who have sold very well on those platforms. Some of it will just be me sitting here talking. So we'll see. But starting next week, I can tell you Spreadshirt, which is going to be the first in the series is going to be one that I cover pretty extensively and answer a lot of questions about that. So, with that being said, if you have any specific questions about Spreadshirt, please by all means go to Facebook, look up the 4554 podcast, send me a message asking your specific questions, or you can reach me on YouTube or Instagram at the 4554. I'm sorry, at 4554 podcast and Nick Eden on YouTube. That's all I've got for today, guys. Take care. And remember this, you can make as much money as you want to in print on demand, but you have to press the go button. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.